It is my privilege to have Mark Davis and Carrie Simon from Ardent Flame Media Group on The Arthropologist today. We first met a number of years ago when I began doing storyboards for some of their commercials and short films. I remember when Ardent Flame was just starting out, and I've been so excited watching them grow over the years, and was delighted to work with them on their most recent film, Life is My Choice, and asked them when they got the chance to come on the program. So, Mark and Carrie, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Oh,
We're,
you're so
we're
welcome.
delighted.
First thing, let's start with Ardent Flame. That's a cool name. Tell me about that.
Well, I guess I'll take this one.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
ardent is a it's a word meaning a lot of passion, and flame is often a an analog for passion as well. So one of the things that in starting the company and then pursuing the projects that we wanted to pursue was a project of passion that started the whole ball rolling, and it seemed to best exemplify the driving factor behind our company, our brand, and the projects that we do. We put a lot of passion into the projects. We don't pick projects simply on financial viability, but also on the messages that they
Convey.
convey.
Mhm.
And so, the Ardent Flame seemed to be a very fitting title for the passion we had for filmmaking and expressing stories through film.
Right. Okay, now this is a partnership, but there's a third person in Ardent Flame. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, let's get started with how did you three get together? What brought you guys together to do this?
Well, I think, Bill, I'll take this one. I This is Carrie speaking, and I was at a book signing for my books, and a lady passed by in one of the times that I was speaking with her and said, you really should make this book into a film. And originally I thought to myself, well, it's hard enough being an author, but I took what she said to heart, and I was planning on coming to visit family. And so at that time, during the Thanksgiving holiday, we came together and began thinking, what would that look like if we took some portions of that book and decided to piece together a trailer, which we were able to do.
And actually, it's a actual it's an interesting, I guess, maybe circumstance, but we're actually on the eve of our fifth anniversary
Correct.
today, and after the event that she was referencing, that Carrie was referencing, we had our Thanksgiving holiday back in 2016, and it was a year after the passing of my father and her father, and it was kind of a somber Thanksgiving. It was the first Thanksgiving without Dad, so and he had died pretty much on Thanksgiving in 2015. So she expressed to me her desire to perhaps do a book trailer
Hmm.
to visualize what her book might look like, and that was born out of the conversation she had at one of her book signings. And it was at that point in 2016 that she expressed that to me, and I said, hey, you can make a film with an iPhone. And so that's exactly what we proceeded to do. We left the the eating and the gathering, and we went out to a random field next to the house, and we proceeded to immediately start shooting the very first film work that we ever did on my iPhone. We did very quick storyboarding, scripting, etc. And anyway, so that turned into something later that evening, and the next day when I watched it, she watched it. She said, I think we're onto something. I agreed with her, and she said, well, I'll tell you what, let's do this even better. I think the iPhone uh, trailer was really really cool, but but I think we can do better, and let's put our heads together and come up with a plan. So the spring of the following year, we planned out a shoot, uh, our very first attempt to make anything cinematic, and we got a DSLR. We got a drone
Scouted a few
scouted some
locations.
locations.
Yes.
Yeah, and so in the spring of 2017, we actually made a book trailer. It's the first time I ever opened up Adobe After Effects and Adobe Premiere. It was a lot of firsts, and I guess we caught the bug then. And that's another uh, opportunity we had to meet with John Busby. And Busby was a musician at one of the churches locally there that I went. He was at Pine Lake. I became a musician at Pine Lake, and we connected there, and then kept up our relationship afterwards. And he was also into film scoring. And so I said, hey, we're going to be doing this trailer. Would you like to help out making the music for it? He said, absolutely. And it was through that whole creative process, which was, like I said, it was a first for all of us, to tell a story visually. And I think from that point forward, we just caught the bug.
Okay, so when I first met you, Mark, you were still at, was it Nissan?
Yes, that's correct. I was one of the engineering managers at Nissan Motor Corporation in Canton, Mississippi.
Okay, and so you were just at that point, is that when you were beginning to build the company beyond just doing the trailer?
Yes, that is correct. We were very fortunate. God blessed a lot of our activities. The rest of that year, which was a lot of passion projects, a lot of commercial style projects through 2017. In 2018, we were fortunate to hook up with Chip Miss Kelly from Miss Kelly's Furniture. We did some, independent work with one or two of his foundations, and that also put me in connection with Demario Davis from the New Orleans Saints. So in the spring to summer of 2018, we were doing work with Demario Davis, developing marketing content for some of the philanthropic work that he had going on. So he's got his foundation, the Devoted Dreamers Foundation, and Demario had a very strong vision for school for inner city kids. He had a passion for sports, obviously, and for helping groom young men that may have been overlooked by other schools, or maybe were in a position where they needed to have some mature guidance in their lives. So that, of course, coupled with his Encounter conference, which we did some marketing material for that, and so we were very fortunate to get those opportunities with Demario, and that segued into some other work. And I believe, one of the things that we were looking at working with Chip Miss Kelly was on a company that he was working towards developing a new branding style for some mattresses. And that's one of the things that you came in and helped us with very early on in 2018.
Right.
Was developing some storyboards for, I think, 3 or 4 commercials that we were trying to pitch to Chip and Soleil Sleep.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, this is actually fun for me because I remember, I don't remember exactly how we got together. It may have been you posted needing a storyboard artist, and then my son, who keeps
Emil,
yes, would have kept up with that and shot me your information, and then that's how we got together. And so I remembered that, our first meeting, and it was just so much fun, and had just a delightful time doing the storyboarding. And I think we've done a couple other things since then,
Yep.
between the movies, or this last movie. But of course, I wasn't privy to all of this other information, so it's just been fascinating and wonderful to see the growth that your company has made. I will tell you, the first time I saw one of your trailers that you did, I was learning After Effects at the same time you were learning After Effects. And yeah, as most people know, especially when you and I were doing it, there weren't a whole lot of you couldn't
Tutorials
just
for
go
that.
get information. And if it wasn't for store message boards and tutorials on YouTube, we'd have been sunk. And
Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, this is just an aside, but again, for those who are thinking about ever doing something like After Effects, oh my gosh, it's like a mile and a half deep and a mile and a half wide. It's just an incredible program. And um, what you did, I was actually moving some special effects, but doing more animation type things, and you were doing more special effect background stuff. And
Yeah.
it was fascinating seeing where you had gone. But again, that's just an aside. I just loved what you were doing. Um, and so,
I wonder if that was Freedom or which trailer that was, because that would kind of indicate about that time frame when we were not only branching out in the commercial aspect, but also kind of coming back to our roots of film work as well.
I don't remember. I just remember there was a lot of wonderful, smoky um, special
Yes,
effects.
that would have been
Hmm.
Freedom. Yeah.
Yes, yes, beautiful stuff.
And and you know, I would have to just sound off with what you said previously about tutorials. One thing I found in a lot of independent filmmakers that don't go the traditional route to mastering a craft, not just how to write a story or produce a story, but even down to the nuts and bolts of how do you edit a story? How do you take pieces and put it together and tell a cohesive story? There are a lot of videos on YouTube that are very helpful, and then there's a lot of videos on YouTube that are not helpful. And I
Yes,
think the problem that I had starting off was I didn't know what I didn't know, so I couldn't digest the information in a way that helped me achieve what I needed to achieve. So um, I had a lot of sleepless nights rummaging through YouTube just to find the content that I needed to be able to execute what I had in my head. And it is difficult sometimes. Not just that there's a lack of information, but sometimes there's just too much, and it's not purposeful to your objective.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I feel you on that. There's just I didn't see any other way than being self-taught through random tutorials or explanations on YouTube.
Right.
Right. And
And I think Freedom was one of those things where it brought us back to doing film work. We had looked at a local film festival and saw the deadline and made an attempt. I think, Mark, it was what, 3 or 4 days of shooting. We gave ourselves an almost impossible task to script and film, and then, of course, the post production on that and have it delivered to the film festival. And it turned out amazing.
It was 48 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
wow.
those competitions where you take a concept and from concept to completion you've got roughly a couple of days to deliver it. So it was aggressive.
Wow.
Right. And
Um,
it also bridged the gap of like sometimes learning that storytelling doesn't always require dialogue. I think that was another thing that opened up, because if you look at Freedom, it was all visual,
right.
and it gave us, I think, on one of the places that we shot at, we didn't even realize until we got there that it had originally been a silent theater.
Oh,
So
really?
yes, and we had just some amazing things. In fact, we went to this theater because we had gotten other locations, we had everything in place. And then the last day of the shoot, they said, you know what, we just can't do it. So, of course, that nightmare of scrambling to try to make sure you can get another site location. And we get over there and we begin shooting. And the lead actor goes to the back of the theater, comes back out, and in his hands he is holding a sign, and the sign says freedom on it.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was
Okay.
just one of those things where we went, okay, that's pretty wild. And it ended up doing very well.
Neat.
So it was good. It was definitely good to get back into the filming, wouldn't you say, Mark?
Yes.
Just where our heart is.
Okay. Um, I would like to just for a few minutes talk about the business side of, excuse me, the business side of Ardent Flame, because a lot of people get started in something like this. They're a sole proprietor. That's what they do. Um, what's it like teaming up? You've got three different people with different skill sets. Um, possibly you've got the same vision, but maybe a different vision of how that vision should be executed. So let's talk about what it's like partnering up. What are the challenges of being a partner, especially with three partners?
Mark, do you want to lead on that?
Sure, I'll lead on that. So you said it right, Bill. Each person kind of brings a piece of a puzzle, and the talents and skills that each of us have complement each other.
Yes.
I think finding where each person's lane is and giving them the creative space to sort of direct that area. I'm not saying that works out 100% every time. I'd be lying to you if I said that. But for instance, when it came to the commercial side, or it came to the film side, um, Carrie was typically the person that spearheaded all film activity for the company. So any film, short film, book trailer, narrative work went through Carrie. And when it came to commercial work, that went through me. And when it came to musical compositions and scoring, that was something that was in Busby's wheelhouse. So we each had a role to play early on in, I guess, the business growth of Ardent Flame. So obviously, film projects are fewer and far between than, say, for instance, commercial work. So there were times when I was doing commercial work, and then Carrie was beating the bushes trying to drum up the film work. And it gives me a little bit of confidence knowing that if I were sole proprietor, that everything would rely on me to be able to go out, collect the business, deal with clients, cast vision, write the scripts. Just to be honest with you, I think there's a strength in numbers. Maybe not too many, chiefs and not enough Indians, but I do think that having each person, um, you know, have control and or leadership in the areas that they're strongest in, and then giving them that responsibility, but also that opportunity to be leader in those areas. So, I'll give you an example. If we had someone that expressed an interest in doing a short film or a trailer, for instance, for their book or for a script to help pitch it, they would be reaching out to Carrie, and she would manage all of that. My responsibility would be more or less the tech and the background as the DP. And when it came to post production and sound, that's something that we would reach out and lean on John Busby for. So I mean, I think it worked out very, very well. And then conversely, if there was a commercial project, I was typically the one dealing with clients on the commercial end, scheduling those shoots and handling them. And so I had my area of influence and leadership, Carrie had hers, so on and so forth. So I think there are some challenges, obviously, because from a creative standpoint, everybody that gets into film is a creative individual. And so as creatives, we tend to have a way we want to do things or a vision that we have for the project. And I'm not saying that we don't butt heads sometimes creatively, but at the end of the day, each person has their area of expertise and responsibility, and we just trust that individual with the vision for that project.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things like, well, uh, when do you compromise and how do you compromise? And I guess it's a floating point. It sometimes one party's going to have to give way, and sometimes the other party, because since it is a partnership, unless there's someone that's there used to be that joke, the Soviet Union would say, in the Soviet Union, everyone is equal, but some people are more equal than others. Um, you,
Correct.
you,
I think that
you
was Animal House, actually.
yeah.
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 Um,
And
so,
I've been listening to a guy named Chris Voss, who is an author and a speaker, and he is has his own company that he has a number of. Well, he's in partnership, and he said something to me that was just very fascinating. He said, "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go as a team." And
correct.
yeah, boy, you're just so right because. In the little animated shorts and things that I've done, you know, when I'm just doing this stuff in the studio by myself, it's just overwhelming. If you're trying to do anything by yourself, there's just so many moving parts, and you've really got to have people with different sets of skills and expertise, and then just sometimes just the nitty gritty grunge work, paperwork and stuff. Sometimes it's just got to be delegated out, or one person will get overwhelmed.
Oh,
Mhm.
I agree. I agree. And um, I think the phrase or line you're attributing to Chris Voss, I agree with that 100%. There are a lot of things that you can do by the seat of your pants if you have no accountability to anyone else. Um, but I think if everyone's got skin in the game and everybody truly wants to see the whole succeed, you have to be willing to you have to be willing to accept the feedback. But I do believe what makes some business decisions more successful, I'm not saying it works every time, but I do believe that you have to acquiesce, influence, and control to a person with whom that responsibility lies. So
Right.
I think I give an example. Carrie can tell you I argue with her all the time creatively about shots as a DP saying, we can't do it this way, we got to do it this way. As a director, it's her prerogative to shoot it the way she wants to shoot it. That same thing from a business perspective works where if it's in a commercial vein, I'm going to be the one making the calls and I will take in consultation the feedback. But if it's a film project, and like I said, Carrie can tell you, we've argued creatively before. When it comes to the film projects, whether I agree with every decision or not, it doesn't have to be 100% consensus. Um, because as a business partner, but also as a fellow creative and someone that understands the need to give that leadership role over in specific situations, there has to be someone that calls the shots, and you can't have a stalemate. There has to be a tiebreaker, which was also a reason why there's three members and not an even number. But in each area of influence, each person has the final say in their area of expertise, and that doesn't mean that they can be flippant with a decision, and I don't think we are. But I do believe that with each business decision, we pretty much know based on the swim lanes for each person who has the say in that. So if I disagree on a film project, I'll voice my concerns, and we'll work through some of the things that concern me. But at the end of the day, when we're shooting a film, that's Carrie's call, and we just set that on the front end and say, okay, well, film is Carrie. That's and I'm not saying that I don't have input. I'm just saying when it comes to the decision making, and I think that helps keep the frustration down. If
Right.
there is if there is conflict, and there always is some level of conflict, but knowing that, okay, well, I can be upset about it, but at the end of the day, my role here is to support Carrie and making sure that we as a company and this project and the story that it represents moves forward to the best that it can.
Right. And I would have to say that there is so much respect for each person in this company. The talent that they bring is truly appreciated and understood. So even in discussions where I might say, "Hey, I like it this way," and Mark is going, "No, this is not going to, this isn't going to work in this," and I'm behind the camera right now telling you, and so of course we're having kind of those issues. We still kind of have a refreshing respect and kind of roundtable approach to go, well, you know what, let me see what it looks like that way, and we may have another take, and we may shoot it a different way and go, you know what, that makes a lot of sense, let's roll with that one. So we're all very open. Nobody's bringing egos to the table, just vision, and that is such a wonderful thing that you can do um, business with someone like that. It is very complimentary in the company, and we care about one another, and we care about the products, the projects, whatever it is. Um, we're always about doing our very best.
How has the pandemic affected your production company?
Well, I'll take this one. So as it relates to the commercial work, I think initially the the uncertainty of how to wrap, like how industries and individuals and companies and businesses, as they grappled with trying to understand what was happening in the world, and not just in the world, but in the local communities, and some conflicting information. And then, do we wear masks? Do we not wear masks? Do we keep them on? Do we triple mask? I think some of that did influence companies that were looking to launch campaigns, and then they stepped back away from those campaigns, said, look, we got to see what's going on with the bigger picture. So yes, I would say that a lot of our commercial work was directly impacted. We did work with a couple of organizations that that kind of pivoted from marketing to going virtual, and so we picked up some business in the virtual production space, lost some business in the um, in the marketing side. I will say that initially it did hurt us in the film side, when we were not able to have larger crews, or even crews at all. And I think Louisiana shut down, and we had to postpone a few of our projects because of it. Now, fortunately, as the pandemic um, subsided to a stable level, there was a little bit more understanding and information, accurate information coming out about the efficacy of countermeasures, etc. And then as the industry, the film and commercial industry, developed new safety protocols for keeping everyone safe. I think as those limitations were relieved, we were able to get back to work. But I don't think we were, in 2020 at least, we were able to get back to where we anticipated being. So we did take a fairly large step back.
Right. In fact, there were further mandates in Louisiana where we had certain projects that were scheduled to be filmed that may or may not have had the same impact on other states. I think Mississippi was a little less, but Louisiana, the numbers had kept rising. And so those mandates, you know, kind of stuck around for a little bit longer than we anticipated. And that did have effects on those projects that we had scheduled. Well, so now we've picked up since the pandemic. Things are getting scheduled, and obviously we have just finished up a project with you, which we were so grateful to have you on board for.
I was so delighted. I mean, I loved working on it. This is something that's been in my prayer life for a long time and on my heart. And so it was just such a blessing when Mark called me and said, I got a project I want you to storyboard. So I'm just going to be quiet and I want you guys to talk about it and we'll go from there.
Okay. So Mark and I would say John Busby had spoken to a lady who provided a story about how she had been working at an abortion clinic And of course, since that time had quit, given her life to God, but had indicated to us about the processes and procedures of Planned Parenthood in that they would intentionally turn the heartbeat off, amongst other things, because they knew that the percentage was very high for women if they heard the heartbeat or they had an ultrasound, that they would change their minds and keep their children. Now, originally, we had discussed doing this more of a documentary. However, she just did not feel comfortable in doing that. So we began to rescript things and open it up to the idea of having someone else cast in that role. But to still, we felt that the story was very compelling. We felt like women needed to know what was going on. We felt like the world needed to know what was going on. And so we all came together and scripted that and began to plan for that to be filmed.
Awesome. So this is the story is based on reality. It's based on true story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is based on a true story. And when we began the process of casting, I had a dream about a girl's face. Quite frankly, we came into all kinds of things trying to get this scheduled and casting, and we won't go into how much just attacks of the enemy, quite frankly, to get this story out to the masses. But I had a dream, and it was a young woman's face, and so I'm casting, and I'm looking for the right people, and the lead, I knew she would have such an important role, and it needed to be compelling. And so I had put out a quick casting call for it. It didn't require a lot of actors, but I wanted to go ahead and kind of look through that, and also the database that we already had. And much to my surprise, a young lady reached out to me, and I said, this sounds awesome, and you're in the area, and yes, can you please, go ahead and fill out the information, send a couple of headshots to us. And of course, you can imagine my surprise when it was the image of the girl I had seen in my dream.
Wow.
So pretty wild on that. We came together with a local hospital that gave us clearance to film there, and everyone came on board. However, the first day of the shoot, we found out that the lead actress's mother had also worked at a Planned Parenthood at one time in her life and verified everything that this story had said. She reaffirmed about the heartbeat being turned down. She reaffirmed all of the things that they would do to facilitate having the abortion and not letting women hear the heartbeat of their child.
Yeah, and I think that's so important that regardless of what, and this would just be my piece of advice to anyone making a film, writing a book, whatever, no matter how passionate you are about any subject, if you drift away from the truth, even if you just fudge a little bit, you will get caught eventually. And when you're caught, it really does so much destruction to your to the veracity of what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to say. And so that's where I appreciate just how vigilant you were in trying to make sure that everything that was in this film was as accurate as you could make it. Now, I mean, of course, with any film, there's going to have to be creative license because of just uh, timelines and things like that. But as far as like authenticity, making the message as true as possible, I felt like it was as good as you could make it. Because Mark, I remember a few times we would be working on a storyboard, and I can't remember exactly, but you said, "Hold on, I know you drew it that way because I wasn't sure what to tell you, but I'm not sure that's exactly how that works," or something along those lines, like from a technical medical aspect. Maybe it was one of the machines I drew or something. And I was just so impressed that you said, "You know what? I want to make sure this is as authentic as we can get it. And so let me check into a couple of things. So even in the details down to when I'm storyboarding, you were really trying to make sure things were as authentic as possible because we're dealing with a subject that's incredibly divisive and people can get hyperbolic and they can get overwrought and it just doesn't do you any good to not be truthful. It's just better not to say anything or to redo what you're doing than to allow yourself to go into a direction where you're just even fudging the truth.
Right. I think it was so important, like you were saying, with Mark going back and doing the research or talking to people in the medical field, like his wife Jennifer, and saying, "Hey, is this where this needs to be? We want to make sure that we take away any of that, fodder that someone who might disagree with that." Would try to throw and say, well, no, that's not how it really happened, or they wouldn't have put that right there. So, yes, it was very important that we do that. And when we had reached out to you, Bill, to do the storyboard, not only was it so important for us as the crew, but it was very helpful to the cast. And I think a lot of times people don't truly understand how important and vital storyboarding is. It really kind of puts us in the right perspective of where everything needs to be. But as far as the cast, when we would send the storyboard to Ariel Butler, who played Talia, the lead actress, she began to truly visualize her character and what her character went through and where she needed to be emotional. It became very real to her by seeing that storyboard. So it was wonderful that you were able to do that.
Well, thank you. I was actually hoping I could put a little shameless plug in there where we talked about storyboarding. Well, honestly, I like to educate people who might be listening. There might be someone who's going, do I really need a storyboard artist? Or someone who's going, I've thought about doing it, but of what value is it? And having someone other than just the storyboard artist say just how important it is to have things in a concrete manner. Um, because I know I've actually worked with directors that uh, they would have a vision of how things were supposed to be set up. The cameraman would have another, the gaffer would have another, the actors would be a fourth, and all of a sudden they'd see a storyboard and everybody would step back and say, "Oh, I thought it was supposed to be over here or over there." And it really helped everyone to solidify their vision of what it was supposed to look like. And also, it's easy to have stuff in your mind and think, "Oh, I want to shoot it from this angle." And actually have two different angles in your head at the exact same time
Hmm.
and not realize that until it starts getting drawn out and you realize, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about two different thoughts from two different perspectives at the same time. Um, and then I think for the actors, I actually I try to focus my storyboards as much in the emotion of the character as I do just as a mannequin in a place. And Mark was real instrumental, especially in this, where he would tell me, this is what should be in the heart and mind of the character when something's going on. And so I would really try to put some of that pathos in there so that I'm glad to hear that the actress could look and go, that's the way I'm supposed to be thinking. That's what's supposed to be in my head. Um, it just hopefully added a little bit of concreteness to it other than just words from a director.
Absolutely. I think it made a lot of difference in her performance, to say the least, because it at that point she understood and could then work on conveying that for the screen. I think it was very, very instrumental. And yes, I remember that night of Mark and you and I kind of bouncing off those things. And when I would get those storyboards, I just, quite frankly, Bill, I just kept saying, "Wow, man, this is awesome." We've won um, a couple of awards so far because it has gone to certain film festivals. A lot of official selections right now, with wins pending, possibly. But in one of the festivals that we took Life to, we actually sat afterwards with one of the directors who's directed like over 50 films, and we're showing him because he was just so impressed with Life is My Choice. And we sat and showed him some of your storyboard, and all he could say is, "Wow, I am just really impressed with this." We don't talk enough about the fact of needing storyboards in this way and how just important it really is.
And just as an aside, I was going to say, when I first got the script from you, Mark, we hadn't really talked about it, and I started reading it. And well, as you know, or may not know, but in our industry, being pro-life is you're in a minority.
Yeah.
And I was reading this and I was going, "Oh man, I'm not going to do this for you," and because I thought it was a pro-choice thing, and I was looking and going, "Wait a minute, am I misreading this? This actually sounds pro life." And what was so neat was that the message, it's subtle in the sense that it's just not hitting you in the face, but I mean, it's still absolutely pro life. But the another thing I liked about it was that as I was reading it, it wasn't just knocking me over, almost like a piece of propaganda. It was just a good story that was very moving, and I appreciated that so much from the writing aspect. But like I said, the first time when you sent me the script, I was looking at it and I was going, "Wait a minute, I'm not doing a pro-choice thing. That I
Yeah.
don't play that." And then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh my gosh, I think this is pro-life." And I actually called Emil, and he said, "Oh no, Dad, he's pro-life." So,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, and we purposely chose Life is My Choice because Planned Parenthood has often made a woman think that they don't have a choice if they choose life. You always have a choice,
right,
and in just kind of talking about it, quite frankly, we probably shouldn't have a choice in
hmm
that matter. But the fact that, we have a choice with capital punishment, we have a choice with certain things, and people can, uh, you know, talk about that. Women always have a choice, and they can always choose life. And that was one of the reasons to name it that, was to even talk about the fact that they manipulate women to thinking they don't have a choice when they always have one.
right. Now you said that this has been in a number of, or at least one film festival.
Yes, Mark, we've got the West Virginia Family Film Festival where we won for the short film. We won Best Director. We have had official selections at the Cannes Indie Film Festival. We're currently at the Toronto Women's Film Festival. So, it's right now it's going through the film festival circuit, right? When we talk to your audience about where it is right now, and so it's been submitted to certain film festivals, and we're hearing back good responses from those right now, and for the others, we're just waiting to see. So
Is the
we
film
all,
is the film
yes,
festival circuit picking back up with the pandemic and doing well, or do you even know?
as far as what we're seeing, yes, we're seeing people happy to get out of the online film festivals. There's still a few that are still doing that, but for the most part, people are attending live to a lot of these film festivals, and I'm so grateful for that. There's so many wonderful artists out there with their projects, and I'm happy that we're a part of it. But also, it is so good to go there, meet people in the same industry, talk to them about what they have going on. Sometimes it facilitates further connections with other projects. I know we've got some leading up in February that we've now, because of those connections, partnered with another film company to do some more film work as well. So it's a win-win in that regard.
That is awesome. Um, so what's going on in the what's planned for 2022? Isn't that next year, 2022?
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
amazing that it's about a month or so away.
Yes. Yes.
So
So what's in the planning for Life is My Choice and Ardent Flame for 2022? What's going on?
Mark, you want to take a couple of these, and then I'll do the same. We've got a lot, Bill. So
Good.
Well, actually, this is your area of expertise. So I'll say that there has been, as it relates to Life is My Choice, there has been interest in expanding that beyond a 7-8 minute short, to doing
correct.
something more long form. Um, we have we have another short film that we're in the process of scripting. There's a script currently being worked on for Carrie's first book, Save Them All, which her foundation, her nonprofit foundation, is named or titled after. And then we have some opportunities to have some activity with um, a couple of companies, JC Films, for instance, out of West Virginia, doing some work down in Lafayette, putting on uh, some, I guess,
Act,
training, acting
acting
training.
workshops, and they're very interested in seeing the expansion of Life is My Choice. So, going to talk to us about those kind of things.
And then, I mean, the last thing is still there's a lot of pre-production on another potential feature with a company out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and we'll see how that goes. I mean, I can't talk too intently about it because it's
Sure.
still in negotiations, but the hope is that that will happen in 2022 as well. So 2022 for the film side does seem to be shaping up pretty good, and we're excited about where those projects are gonna go. I think every storyteller, well, actually every creative and every filmmaker at the core, regardless of what your medium is storytelling. And so, um, as a storyteller, you're always excited to get an opportunity to tell those stories. And so,
Right. And even though we have, larger projects slated for 2022,
our
we
very first feature, yeah,
correct. We still truly enjoy putting out short films, letting those go through the film festival. We do have fun with those. We really do. It's great feedback. It garners interest and exposure for Ardent Flame, so we definitely like those. And we're always open to helping, other people with their visions. Maybe there's an author that really wants that book trailer. We're always open to those things as well.
Right. Just a little soapbox moment when Mark, when you said that at its core, you know, movie making and just art in general is at its core telling a story.
yeah,
I just wanted to uh, put my 2 cents in with that. Whenever I'm teaching painting and drawing, I'm always telling my students that at the core, art is about communication. It's about telling a story. It is not, first and foremost, you expressing yourself. Because self expression, a 2 year old's kicking and screaming on the floor of a
and
Walmart
so
because they want a toy, that's self expression. I don't think I'd call it art. Um, and all
yeah,
too often, when artists get caught up in just self-expression, they forget that it has to communicate something to the audience.
Yeah.
And if they don't get it, it's like going to a foreign film. If you go to a foreign film and there's no subtitles, then you're just
You know,
watching a bunch of random pictures that you can't
Hmm.
necessarily follow unless it's a
exactly.
silent film. So I appreciate that so much. And that's where I was saying that life is my choice. When I started reading the script, it was just such a good story because it has a message, but it wasn't I can't think of the word, like polemical or something. It wasn't just all about trying to
Yeah, it's
propagandize a message. It was
Yeah.
first
It
and
was.
foremost a good story.
Yeah, it was apolitical. And I think we, I think um, we polarize individuals in society based on a series of choices. Carrie said that one of the things that that she alluded to in the fact that the phraseology pro-choice. Interestingly enough, the the pundits of that phraseology infer indirectly or directly that the only choice is to let someone in somebody else's life so that you can go do what you want to do. Um, and pro-choice, um, like Carrie said, everyone does have a choice. You have a choice to commit murder. There's repercussions for that choice in any other circumstance. And I think that as we normalize abortion, you'll have people that don't see it as murder, and we see that now with the pro-choice movement. Um, but it is a life, and life is worth protecting. And so the reasonable choice should be to protect that life. It should not be um, to to destroy that life.
Right.
And I think the using the term "life is my choice" was almost an attempt to bring attention to the fact that when someone says they're pro-choice, they're not really saying the choice is to save a life. They're really saying the choice is to kill a life.
Right.
So the reciprocal is very true. And so when they say if you're pro-life, you're not pro-choice. We are pro a very specific choice because of our belief system that we believe life is precious and is worth saving. That's our choice. And so I think that message is often lost. And so that's a little bit about the polarization that this topic has in general. So trying to remain apolitical and not force feed a doctrine was very important to selecting how we represent the scenes, so that you are allowed to experience what an individual experienced vicariously, and you can see the rationale for their decisions. And their decision and their choice was to save a life.
right. I think it was very important that we take away kind of the thought that anyone who is standing out there praying that that young woman will choose life is somehow this horrible person that's been on this outrageous judgment of them or anything else like that. And that is so far from the truth. The way that the pro-choice, if you will, likes to proclaim it, and yes, there's extremists on either side, right? But for the most part, the people that are out there hoping that these young women will make a better decision, or being there to encourage them not to have that happen again, that they can still be loved by God, they can still be forgiven by Him. I think it was very important that we be extremely delicate while still being very truthful.
Yeah, that was the other thing is that this the whole movie, the whole short was very tastefully done. It was not built around being outrageous, being over the top, because we're dealing with a very sensitive subject anyway. There's no need to necessarily go over the top. You don't have to shout to get your message out. Very often, a whisper can have far greater an effect than uh, a guttural shout.
Absolutely. It was the young boy that told the emperor he had no clothes on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The truth will speak for itself and it will be loud enough.
right.
And I think we have in discussing some of the expansion of Life is My Choice from a short to a long form narrative. Um, it's not, I don't want to undermine the call to action as simply, you know, uh, stay away from abortion and save a life, but there's a lot more to that call to action. There's a support structure that needs to be in place, and there's a lot of opportunities for other individuals to get involved. So the story originally, as written, included a secondary story that never really quite made it into the short, which was about a separate couple that was there protesting. Um, we thought that was something that we could still tell the main narrative in the shortest amount of time without having to go into detail. But when we talked about some of the 2022 opportunities and the things that we're looking towards doing with expanding upon this particular short film, I think that there's a communal responsibility as well. If we believe what we say we believe, how are we going to step up individually and participate in saving that life? How are we going to, from a social perspective, how are we going to stand up and give a support structure to that woman so she can make that decision easier and feel like that people care enough about her choice and are willing to stand in the gap for her. So I think there's some opportunities with talking about the call to action. Yes, we'll make a decision to not end a life, but there's other support individuals that can come in and ultimately influence that individual, not just telling you don't need to kill your baby, which I know that's kind of blunt to say, but that's what it is. We'll just call a spade a spade. But actually loving them and supporting them, and so those are some opportunities to really illustrate how that could be. Like what would a support structure look like? What are some things that people can do? And if this short film were to be expanded, when we talk about a happy ending, how do we turn a negative into a positive, and get more individuals involved in the call to action rather than just the woman making the decision not to have an abortion, but the community at large supporting that individual and giving them the infrastructure to help raise that child.
Right. And of course the importance of showing the corruption and the manipulation done by Planned Parenthood, that we know for a fact. And then of course, being reaffirmed by, the lead's mother that we had no idea would have had any, interaction or ever worked for Planned Parenthood. We've also talked about maybe expanding to telling from a guy's standpoint, because I think that is a story that has been lost. We talk about the woman and so forth, and that's all very important. But I don't think anybody has really truly stepped up to the plate to talk about the father and his right for his child as well. So
That's
yes,
fantastic.
yeah. So I definitely think there's a lot more opportunity this upcoming year. I mean, we're excited. What we're delighted at what God is doing. We're open to His direction, and we're going to be obedient in whatever that is.
Before we go, is there anything else that you guys would like to share with the listeners?
Um, you know, I, I'll speak strictly from my experience as a novice trying to tell the stories that are on my heart. And I think Carrie can say something very similar. If you're truly passionate about what you want to do, don't accept mediocrity. That's the first one. I think a lot of filmmakers they're not self-critical, and Whether you're writing a script and you 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 think it's good enough, really, really, I guess, challenge yourself to say how can it be better. If you're behind a camera, or even if that camera is your iPhone, like what we did when we started, like how can it be better? How can you continually improve and try and set your rubric very, very high? If someone is excellent at what they do and they're renowned for it, we put them on a website. We call it a master class. Well, those are your targets. The best of the best, and to be challenging. So one of the things that I think has made us, I guess, one of the things that's made us successful at what we've done is that we strive to not be mediocre. We strive for excellence in all we do. And part of that kind of comes back to that ardent flame, that passion, because we're very passionate about it. I'm very passionate about the projects I do. I'm very passionate about doing what I do with excellence. Even if it's someone else's project, it's still something that I take very serious. And from a scriptural perspective, it says, "Whatsoever thy hand finds to do with all thy might as unto the Lord." And so I don't like to accept mediocrity. Carrie can tell you that if I think something looks cheesy, I think we use the term cheesy all the time. I really don't like it, and I will work feverishly to make sure that it's not. And when I see a lot of other independent filmmakers that have really great ideas, and the thing that they're passionate about is very worthwhile, but sometimes the execution tends to mask the passion that they have. I feel bad that some of those filmmakers won't have an opportunity. There's some of the best stories will never get made, unfortunately. And I know, starting out, one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I did was I gave all the reasonable due diligence to do everything I did with excellence, and then I set myself to try and measure up to the best of the best. It wasn't I'm better than the guy next door to me. I need to be better than whoever's very successful in the vein I'm trying to emulate, or the project I'm trying to do. If I'm doing a short film, what are great short films? What are they doing? How can I do it as good or better? So I think having a level of criticality was just being honest with yourself about, are you doing it to the best of your ability, and can it be better? I think that will take you farther than sometimes even college courses.
Right.
Absolutely. I like how one uh, screenwriter once told me, never cheat the audience. And we look at it as such a responsibility that we have in storytelling, because we're giving people a journey of both mind and heart. And it matters to us that not only is it excellence before God, but it's excellence to others. We don't ever get into any project and go, I just want to be good enough. So as we continue to grow, as we continue to expand, as we continue to, experience, we're open and honest and critical, of ourselves and objective of ourselves, as we should be, so that we are doing the very best at that time. And as we grow, we will give that extra next level, right? We're continuing to do that in everything, no matter how big or small that project is.
Well,
So I
that
would just encourage other, people that are listening or interested in this, always give your best. Be critical, be open, be humble, and be determined. If you hear no, or I don't think so, or whatever, go back and rewrite that script. Make the changes you need to, so that you hear that yes instead of that no.
awesome. Guys, this was fantastic. I have so enjoyed talking to you. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed working on Life is My Choice, and I've just enjoyed doing the other storyboards for you. I've just had a delightful time working with you since we met. So I think we'll call that a wrap. Thank you again, Mark and Carrie, for being on the show. And I'm Bill Wilson, and I'm the arthropologist. If you've enjoyed this episode, think about subscribing. You can also check out my podcast at thearthropologist.podbean.com.